Saturday, View from the Boundary. Well, this week we've got one of this country's leading stage and screen actors. He's a multiple Olivier Award winner with acclaimed performances in plays like Othello and Hamlet. On television, well, he's portrayed Dennis Thatcher, Lord Lucan and Frankenstein's monster. He's played the British Prime Minister in The Diplomat, the campaigning lawyer in Toxic Town, as well as appearing in hit shows like Black Mirror and Count Arthur Strong. In film, well, Imitation Game, Bank of Dave. He's played Winston Churchill in the Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare. And you've no doubt seen him as the wry MI6 Chief of Staff Bill Tanner in the last 4 James Bond films, Quantum of Solace, Skyfall, Spectre and No Time to Die. I'd say welcome to the Oval. I think you spend more time here than I do, Rory Kinnear. It's lovely to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
One of those people I just feel that I know from just years of watching telly and films. And
well, it's also so lovely to be interviewed here at the Oval, which has definitely over the last 10 or 15 years become, if not my first home, then definitely a second home.
Yeah. Because you live very local, don't you?
I live very locally, and it's the kind of sport that gets its grips into you. I mean, I've always loved cricket, I've always watched it, but I guess I never had access to a local ground growing up. So moving here about 12 years ago, and coming here for the first time and feeling there was just something in me that just sort of quietened down. And I think walking into the members' pavilion for the first time, it just felt oddly, because I was probably about 40 years younger than everyone else, that I'd found home. Yeah. So now, whenever I'm at home and Surrey are playing, I find it difficult to concentrate or do anything. I sort of feel I have to be there. So inevitably, and I'll check the score, and if I see, oh goodness me, Will Jacks is about to get a 50, I'll run down, give him applause, and then go home and do the washing up.
But that's a lovely thing to be able to do, isn't it? To treat it just as easily.
Yes, I think the first time was when Ponting's his last match here, and he was about to get a century, and I thought I could just go, and I could be part of history.
Yes.
And so I remember coming down, and I just thought, I think this is going to be the rest of my life. I never want to live anywhere too far from the Oval, and obviously, a lot of it is the peace that you get during a county championship match, a stadium that holds 30,000 people where you might have 2,000 to 3,000 if you're lucky.
You don't mind that?
Well, I quite enjoy it, actually.
Okay.
Sometimes with the louder games, I do find it a little bit obtrusive. Right. But no, I learn my lines. I'll
a lot of actors
scripts.
do that.
Yeah, I'll read books or whatever it is. But to have to live in the centre of London and to have this space and this peace and this quiet. I remember one chap, one of the older gentlemen, one of my first years coming here, every time a plane flew over, he flicked at the V's, and I thought,
cool, it must have been busy.
I know.
Every 5 minutes.
I know, yeah, exactly. You thought, crikey, you've still not adjusted to air flight.
Do you think it's a pretty ground, the Oval? I mean, you think of some cricket grounds, and they're aesthetically they're beautiful.
Yes.
Here you've got brick buildings surround, you've got terrace seating. The pavilion clearly is a lovely history.
Yeah, you obviously you sit this end, I sit the other one, so I see the sort of the majesty of the arch, and actually as the skyscrapers have evolved from Vauxhall as well, there's been something quite metropolis-like about it growing up. I obviously sit in the pavilion and look out this way. It's hard to say something that you love isn't beautiful. So I'm afraid I'd have to say that I do think it's beautiful.
You do, because it's quite a brutal place to play.
I think there are so many photos of its history as well, and the more you sort of dig around in its history, and it's not that changed from those early years, and obviously it has, but you can still see the carcass that once stood here, that originally stood here. So there's something about it that just feels the sort of the heartbeat of where I live.
Yeah, nice.
And also,
you bring your kids here, don't you?
Absolutely, yes.
From a young age too.
Yes, and you forget after you've been watching cricket for a long time just how many rules there are until you bring a 3-year-old. And then it was probably about the age of 8 when they first stopped asking who's winning, because it is a difficult question to answer, and it's not necessarily one you want.
But they'll come to a T20 or 100.
My daughter used to do 4 days of a county championship game when she was about 2 or 3. Most of the time was counting chairs or naming chairs.
Well, that's kind of babysitting, though, isn't it? I mean, you can bring them here if there's only a couple of thousand
that,
people.
Jonathan, is no bad thing. If you're able to say to your partner, don't worry. I'll take the kids for the whole day.
Yes.
You don't need to worry.
And they can run around. I mean, it's perfect,
You're not
isn't it?
disturbing anyone.
No.
You're lucky to disturb someone at some of the county.
You could just sit and watch the cricket.
And I've noticed quite a few sort of new or younger parents doing that over the last few years, and I've always thought it was a trick that had been missed by that
Yes.
generation. But they seem to be coming back a bit with the buggies and the bottles, and it's a lovely way to spend a day. Because my daughter now is slightly less keen. My son, I don't need to push. He's a very, very keen
He's
cricketer
here.
himself,
He's
standing
sitting
with us,
behind.
yeah.
I know.
And my daughter, though, she likes to play the pigeon game. And I guess it's a game that you can only probably play at the Oval rather than any other of the international grounds, where you bifurcate the pitch and you choose a half, and at the end of each over, who's got the most pigeons on each side gets a point.
Right.
And I think she probably has made the rules of the pigeon game slightly more complicated than cricket itself. But it's certainly a way for her to keep
I've never thought of that, but you're right. I mean, it can. Well, you could play the seagull game in Adelaide.
Yes,
that'd be quite fun.
Yes,
but here,
presumably,
indeed.
seagulls. Yeah.
But here, yes, the pigeons. What a great way to keep a young.
But they also seem to clear off a little bit. I remember. Popped down yesterday evening, a pigeon, just as someone was about to bowl. But they tend to clear off for the test matches.
Well, I think they let the hawk out, don't they?
Is that?
I think there's a hawk that lives in one of those towers on top of the pavilion.
I've always wondered if that's a myth.
I think it might.
You can see
it might be a blow-up hawk, but they bring something out up there because it happened yesterday. There was a lot of them. Suddenly they vanish. And I think they get the hawk out.
I
something that
wondered
looks
if it
like
was
a
just
hawk.
the noise and the people, which keeps off several of the older Surrey members themselves from coming to the test matches.
So who are your favourite players then, Rory?
So growing up, it was Robin Smith for me.
So many of your
I
age will
know.
say
I
that.
don't. Yeah, I know. I think that test match where he just got repeatedly hit in the face, I think made us all love him. And so I did have a sort of a hankering for Hampshire during that time, and obviously with Warne. And then I used to play the fantasy cricket league. So it was one where you got delivered your scores by post, and you would watch on CFAX to see how your players were doing. At the beginning of every season, I would always choose either Mark Eilert or Peter Such. And
Peter Such. I played with Peter Such.
Did you? There
Yes.
you go.
Leicester. He played for Leicestershire. Well, he went Nottinghamshire.
I knew you were good,
Then
but I didn't know you were that good.
Leicestershire. And then he went to Essex after us.
Because he's obviously now a match official.
Yes,
and
he
there
is.
is still
And a coach.
thrill that goes very
With
viscerally
Suchy.
through me when I hear Peter Such is the match official at a county game here.
Wow, I'll tell him when I next see him.
And the other one, my ride or die, was Andre van Troost, the fastest bowler that I had ever heard of.
That sends a bit of a chill through the spine,
Yes,
actually.
and so those were my three bowlers in terms of watching England and bowling. Gus Fraser was probably the one that I had the most fondness for.
Yes.
And I guess being a purveyor of the in-swinging right-arm doubler myself, there's something about the medium-pace trundler, not to dismiss Angus Fraser as a medium-pace trundler, apologies.
You wouldn't like that.
But there is something about the medium pacer that I've always had a great fondness for, yeah.
You could do with one today. Just dobbing the ball on a length.
Just one more bowler would be nice.
Yes. It hasn't really gone very well this morning, has it?
No, I have been for the last 2 days, and it has flashed by in a blur of greatly exciting cricket. Even when it was raining on the first day, it was still exciting. It was something exciting about the rain. But today has been heavy going and makes you wonder why you do it. And obviously we just managed to get a wicket at the end there.
Yeah.
But, I mean, the only thing you might think is, given watching Shubman Gill bat for the rest of this series, it was a wise old tactic not to give him a sniff of a chance for a couple of hours, because...
He's a beautiful player, though.
Oh,
He's played one cover drive there. I mean,
well, he's always, gone to double figures within about 6 balls, hasn't he? He's barely even noticed. It's the same. The first innings at Headingley, he played a cover drive quite early on, and quite often when you see batters from other countries coming to England, they take a while, an innings at least, or at least half an innings, to adjust to the conditions in England. And you just thought, within about 10 balls, you've worked it out.
Yeah. He's a beautiful player. I have a huge admiration for people who come and watch Test cricket, because they'll usually only come for a day. And I don't know how they select which day they're going to come, and they pay a lot of money. And so if they come, say, on the Saturday, they've got to have known what's happened on the Thursday and the Friday, got to be right up to speed with it. Off they go on the Saturday. It might be a terrific day, it might be a very dull day, it might rain all day, and then off they go again, and that's their experience of that match.
I know, and what happened on that? Yeah, what happened on that? I went to day 2 at Lord's. Forgive me, Father, but I went to day 2 at Lord's and saw Root Century on the second ball, whatever it was, and that incredibly electric moment when Joffre took his first wicket back, and you felt you had been part of something. You were lucky to have been there that day, to have seen that moment that completely galvanised a crowd. But I then got the tube back with my son, and we came to watch Surrey against Glamorgan, where Dan Lawrence got about 100. It was 12 hours of watching live cricket, where Dan Lawrence got a century to win a game that we had no right to win.
Really entertaining, I'd imagine.
And it was almost. For obviously, I'm a huge fan of the longer form of the game, as you say, because each session is a different chapter in a novel. But there was something about going to a T20 game where the miraculous happens as well, where you think there is merit in all these formats.
Yes, well, there is, and we're lucky with cricket, aren't we? Because we do have all these formats, and they're not necessarily heavily artificial. That's what I like about the T20 format. It's a different format, but you're not fundamentally changing the game to a ridiculous extent. That T20 has got a life of its own without really sort of bastardising, if you like, the real format.
Which is the tactical nous that is required is entirely different from. And what I also find interesting about international cricket compared to watching county championship cricket, it's obviously something that England have pursued very, very forthrightly in the last couple of years, is it's almost a completely different game. And it's just one more day, and obviously the players are a bit, in a higher league. But it feels like it's a completely different game. They don't seem to have any belief that what you can do in county championship cricket has any relation to what you can do in international cricket, and they sort of have been proved right over the last couple of years.
Yes. Did you like Bazball when it first started? Did you think this is something that's going to last forever, or did you think, okay? Because I think they have tightened up this year.
Certainly this series they have, until yesterday, and then there was almost a nostalgia when Duckett and Crawley went about their business yesterday for how fun it was, and as much as this has been an extraordinary slugfest, this series. And each half hour seems to reveal a different direction that the match can be turning. Those early days of Bazball, when Bairstow was blasting it everywhere, you realised, I realised at the time, I wasn't sniffy about it, I realised we'd never have it this good again.
Yes, there was that feeling.
Yeah.
And it cleared minds, didn't it? I mean, those same players who lost virtually every test match of the last 17, or whatever it was, they were the same players, and yet somehow Brendan McCullum and Ben Stokes had sort of pressed the reset button in their minds, and psychologically they were. And I think the
psychological, for me particularly, probably as an actor, the psychological aspect of cricket is just so captivating, and how someone at the top can just make the game so simple, or at least strip away the anxieties that you can see crippled cricketers, like you can see crippled performers, and to be able to do that within seemingly a matter of weeks, to free people, to make them feel it's not so important. It's not so important that you don't want to do your best. Whereas seemingly previously over the last few years it is so important that you do your best.
Yes. Different mindset.
Yeah. It's being here for, I think it was day 3 of the Ashes in 23, and it was the morning where, so I'd been on the day 1, and Duckett and Crawley had gone about their business again, and it was maddening, as quite a lot of early Bazball was. But then that day 3, the morning session, and it was almost like they were doing it deliberately. Labuschagne and Khawaja, I don't know if you remember, they scored about 40 runs in the morning session. It was, and it really was a clash of cultures.
Yes.
And you thought, I'm not now sure. And with the genie out of the bottle with Bazball, I'm not sure I can go back to watching Test cricket that is quite as nullifying.
I think it was like in the 70s watching Boycott and Edrich.
Yes. Luckily I didn't. It was Robin Smith and onwards. Well, actually, I think my first Test match that I watched sort of every day of was that India series, the Gooch and Tendulkar at 16. I think Tendulkar's catch in that Test match was the one where I sort of sat up and thought, it was a bit like watching Boris Becker win Wimbledon at 17.
Yes.
When someone's so young, but also so close to your own age. There's only 3 or 4 years older than I was.
Yeah.
Didn't think that I was necessarily going to challenge him within his primacy, but there was something about making it seem so accessible.
What was your playing like? I mean, do you still play? Do you play now, or how much did you play?
I used to. So at the beginning of every season, they would have a sort of a match of your year group to see who the players were, and I used to always have my best match of the season in that sort of warm-up match. Who's going to be? And everyone knew that I wasn't good enough to be in the first team, but I was always made the captain of the seconds or the Bs. I had no tactical insight whatsoever, but I liked batting and I liked bowling, but I particularly liked fielding at silly mid-off, and that I made my own specialty.
Why is that?
You didn't. I don't know. I guess there was something about the threat of it, which I quite liked.
I mean, you're talking silly. You're talking really silly. You're talking just yards from the bat.
I mean, we're also talking 13-year-olds, so not necessarily they're going to take your head off. But I liked. I like catching. I will still, when I come here with my kids, we're allowed to go on the pitch at lunch and tea. I will spend all that time just catching. I just love it.
Tennis ball
with one of those sort of rubberized. And I used to spend every sort of summer holiday. I had a neighbour, one of my best friends growing up, and we would just spend the whole time catching. It was just fun, and it's also quite a good way. And I think what's quite good about sport, and particularly the longer form of sport like cricket, is giving that opportunity for people to talk and to catch up with something to occupy their mind. And I think, maybe I'm making generalisations, but I think with chaps generally, we maybe just need something to take our eye off what we're actually talking about, to be able to open up. Yes. And I think cricket does that very well. I mean, some of the sort of most memorable chats and sort of insights I've had with friends have been watching cricket, where you're just able to do the first 2 hours of, catching up, then you do another 2 hours of jokes, and then the last 3 hours you're actually sort of doing your heart to heart. And
we were talking about this only yesterday.
Oh, is that right?
The whole question of Graham Thorpe.
With the Graham Thorpe, yeah. And I think cricket as a spectator, particularly, obviously, it gives you that options. I mean, I think it is quite a lonely sport to play, but there is something about watching it that you can choose how you enjoy it. I mean, I've had just as much pleasure watching it by myself as I have coming with people, but I wouldn't get the depths of friendships or the depths of insight or the depth of openness to my friendships that I've managed to achieve by being at the cricket for the day. It would take you a year to have that amount of time. Over a couple.
And you're not filling up with beer or anything. You're just sitting there.
I actually weirdly don't drink at the cricket. I think probably because I'm here too much. So you'd have to be watchful about it. But it's I mean it's also it has been sort of the last 10-12 years of my life. Where the claws have got into me more and more, and I find it incredibly rewarding. And sometimes I guess it is a level of mania or addiction that that you find yourself. You shouldn't be necessarily excited that. I don't know, that Cam Steele is taking his first 5-4, so you've got to get down to the Oval to give him a round of applause.
I think it's brilliant.
As a 47-year-old man.
That's wonderful.
There's something inelegant about it, to be honest.
No, it's great. It's genuine enthusiasm, isn't it? Genuine love for it.
Yeah, and to have something. I got into opera when I was in my 30s, and I realised and sometimes when you're in your 30s, you think you've discovered all the things that you're going to like.
Yes.
And I always liked sport, but I think I never sort of gave much time to it. I think it was also having a child who liked sport as well gave me permission. My dad did. I mean, he would try and not work for the 2 weeks of Wimbledon, but other than that, sport didn't play that large a part in his mind. Despite the fact that his own father was a very celebrated rugby player, and we're still looking for the gene to resurface. But my grandfather played for. He's one of the first people to do the double of playing for British Lions and for Scotland in rugby union, and then played Wigan and Great Britain for rugby league. But scored in the first ever Challenge Cup final at Wembley in 1929.
I was talking to Rory Kinnear here at the Oval during lunch. Very much India's day. 189 for 3. They lead by 166. They just one wicket. They've got about 15 minutes until they get out there again. Your dad, Roy, was such a part of that sort of generation of putting on the telly, and there he was. And I was just looking up, researching this. The list of films that he performed in.
I know. Yeah.
Absolutely, I was unbelievable. I mean, did you ever see him?
Well, yes, we did. He was a very present and active and loving dad. And
It just looks like you could never have been at home. It must have been on.
But it was. I think also if you're a character actor, occasionally you do a couple of days on something, and you've got a credit on IMDb. Whereas someone might have spent 6 months on it and they'd still have the same line on IMDb. But he was very, very pragmatic about work. He was very good at work, and I think maybe growing up after he had died, I was a little annoyed that people saw him as this sort of comic actor that made them laugh, because I knew just actually what a skilled actor he was and what a genuinely great actor he was. But he didn't care. I mean, he didn't care how people perceived him. He cared about us. He loved the fact that he was able to do something that he loved, and but by the time we came along, I think he'd been so successful so young. He'd been famous by 27, 28 with That Was the Week That Was. He made so many films. He'd done so much TV, and but it was a sort of a Monday to Friday. I'll go to work and I'll come home and do the rest of the time. I'll do what I love, which is being with my family.
Yeah. Is it easy watching him? I mean, so much of what he did must be easily accessible on Gold and all these other things now.
These days, yeah. I mean, after his death, I did go through a long period and sort of into my 20s and 30s of trying to search out everything that he had done, which was, there are so many things that I've got the listings for but can't find.
Really? That's frustrating.
The BBC archives were wiped at a certain point. But there is something, quite addictive about trying to find a certain play for today that I've never been able to get hold of. Right?
Yeah.
And I still people are putting things up on YouTube or on social media of clips that I haven't seen. A chap who puts up clips of various of snarl-ups from the Dick Emery show, of outtakes, and seeing that, and seeing
his son lives in my village, by the way.
Is that right? There you are.
Yes. He'll be listening. Hello, Nick. Yeah.
Seeing my dad being my dad rather than being someone else.
Yes.
And then of course getting to show my kids his work, and some nearly 40 years after his death, there's his grandchildren that he never met, being able to be made laugh.
Oh, that's lovely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Was it hard following him? I mean, I don't know quite how, time-wise, how it all worked out, but I mean, he was so well known.
Yeah.
And you get the question of sport of sons following famous fathers and everything. And was that an issue or not?
No, I didn't. I never really considered it. I was 10 when he died, so in some ways I discovered I hadn't thought about acting. I didn't really know what acting was. I'd been to the occasional set, and I'd liked what they provided on the food tray, but other than that, I didn't really know what acting meant.
It was in the genes then, was it? Really? Your mum's an actor.
That's right. Yeah. I guess so. I mean, I guess like sport, there's a psychological aspect to it, but there's also a sort of physical aspect to it of having a loud enough voice, or being able to stand on stage and be someone else, or even be yourself. And not minding. So I guess there is a genetic predisposition. You see that in a lot of acting families. But I found out acting for myself at school, and then went on and did an English degree at university, but carried on acting. And then I thought, well, if I'm going to make something of this, I should probably go to drama school and see what it's all about, and see if there's more to it than I'm currently thinking, which is I largely in those years enjoyed being the centre of attention. I had the wherewithal to think that might not be the best way to spend the rest of your life.
No.
So going to drama school was where it was, for me, where I began to ask enough questions about it and what it meant to me and how rewarding it was going to be and if it was going to be challenging enough for me. And pretty soon I realised that it's as rewarding as you make it. And the more questions that you ask about the character or the play that you're doing or the script that you're working on, the more it reveals its rewards and its depths and how elusive and frustrating. And I guess there is a similarity to sport in that sense.
Absolutely.
The deeper you get into it, the harder ever it is to think that you've done something well.
Yeah. You've done so much, though, Rory. I mean, you in cricketing cliche terms. I mean, you are genuinely an all-rounder, aren't you? But I mean, I've got to start with James Bond only because it's kind of it's just so much part of all of our lives, and it's in the news at the moment too, isn't it? With a new writer for the next film.
That's right. Yeah. Well, there's obviously a lot of change going on around the franchise, and it'd be really. I mean, I always know I'm I'm almost the last person in the world to hear anything about what's actually happening. So I've got no insights to provide. I was actually sat, when you were doing your tease earlier about who your guest was going to be, I was sat in front of a family who were arguing furiously over whether it was going to be Timothy Dalton or Daniel Craig. And
oh, no.
And I thought, as if this morning hasn't been disappointing enough cricket-wise, I'm going to have to sheepishly sidle in once. I think one of them was...
Did they recognise you?
I don't think so. I had my Surrey cap in, obviously.
Right.
One of them was furiously arguing that it was going to be Roger Moore, and I really didn't have the heart to get into that with
Well, I'm glad it's you, Rory. But I just looking at the clip. I mean, it's such a massive thing, isn't it? The whole Bond business, and to see you there in the clip that I just saw just now with Daniel Craig and Judi Dench, and there's you there, Bill Tanner, pointing out some baddies who Bond's got to go and kill. I mean, but is it sort of pinch yourself stuff or not? Is it just a job? And
no, it's definitely something more than that. Just in terms of the scale of operations, there just aren't films made like that anymore. Even in the sort of the big sort of Marvel stuff, it's not done. Everything that you see on screen, they are paying for. It's so little is CGI'd. I mean, they really put they really back the fact that these are films that people go to see in the cinema, and the extraordinary stunts that they managed to achieve, as well as the cinematography, and working with like really high-end directors with high-end visions, and obviously Denis Villeneuve coming in for the new one as well.
A massive amount of money to throw it, presumably.
Yeah, and it all goes
big
on
budget.
Screen, and then that's what their ambition is. That the money that they spend, and it is a lot, but it goes on screen and an audience can enjoy it. But I do remember my first ever one, and I wasn't a huge Bond aficionado before I was asked to do it. And I had auditioned for, you get these sort of various dummy scenes, so you don't actually know what your involvement is going to be. So they said, you've got the part. And I said, what is the part? I don't know. And until I've seen a script, what's it going to be? And then they did send the script, and I thought, oh, he's actually in it. Oh, right, this is actually a proper part. I should probably go away and watch some of the films. But it's
quite straight old Bill, isn't he? I mean, Bill's there.
Yes.
He doesn't do the stunts.
Services to exposition, I think he would win an award for. But I had just finished at the time BBC4 were doing various dramas, and I'd just done a BBC4 drama where the same supporting artist had played 4 different parts in the same day, and she was the only extra we had available. And the very next day, I started on the Bond film in the Barbican with about 400 extras, only there for the afternoon just to fill in.
Yes.
And I remember, this is a different zone I've entered here. And quickly, I did have to have a word with myself just to try and forget that, and to try and treat it like any other job. Because I remember one day, just about to go for a take, and again, sort of hadn't really necessarily computed what this all was. But I remember thinking, this is the kind of thing, everyone's going to see this. And usually when you're acting in something, you hope someone might see us. But the inbuilt affection that Bond has. And I just thought, everyone's going to see this. And I literally tripped over my shoes and forgot my lines. I mean, it was amazing what nerves can do to your psychology.
You walk out playing Shakespeare.
Well, the thing is to remember that you're someone else. And that actually, and I do think about that with how sports stars try and juggle their nerves, or how they try and control them. But we have we're very lucky in that our job is to be someone else. We're asked to be someone else, so it's not about us. And we in some ways, I don't want to get in the way. I want to think like this other person. And the reason, I guess, for being an actor is to have those moments, or at least that period of time when you aren't yourself, where you can forget your own life and to explore the psychology and life of someone else. And I think sometimes, for let's say an international cricketer, if they think that it's themselves going out to bat, or it's themselves bowling, the pressure must be so daunting. So they must create this other persona for themselves.
It's interesting because I'm going to say this because I'm very lucky. I interview lots of people doing this. Actors are usually the most nervous, in my experience. You're not.
Playing cricket or on stage? Doing this.
Doing an interview.
Yeah, we're not
because they are themselves, and it's quite a strange place to be. I mean, you're not like that at all, but a lot of the most sort of nervous about this interview are actors.
No, because that's not our job, and we're sort of quite often thrust into it because the needs to advertise. I think also I'm delighted to be here when I'm not having to publicise anything. I've done nothing.
Film to play.
But the thrill of our job and the desire to do our job is to not be ourselves.
Yeah. Talk to me about Shakespeare, because it's a great contrast, isn't it? And you have done so much in so many different areas. Does a Macbeth or Othello or Hamlet, whatever it is, for which you've won these awards, obviously, I mean, do you get more satisfaction out of that? And are they transferable skills from 1 minute?
The T20
you're playing Bill Tanner
of James Bond.
And the next minute you're out there in the National Theatre.
The test match of Shakespeare.
Yeah.
I mean, I think there's probably something in that. What those parts do is ask something of every bit of you as an actor, and obviously that is physically. And I guess that is similarity maybe to the test match game. You having to play Hamlet every night for 8 shows a week.
Yes.
Particularly when your son has been just born and you're having to do that for the first 6 months of his life. That tests you physically. Intellectually, it tests you in terms of working out what he's talking about, working out the relationships with other people. And then emotionally, it tests you and the need to be psychologically acute about what he's going through as well. But emotionally, you don't know what you're going to experience every night. And you want to make sure that you don't know what you're experiencing every night. You want to be as open as possible to change. What I found interesting about playing Hamlet is that you spend 6 weeks, 7 weeks in a rehearsal room, and you have these incredible soliloquies, some of the greatest language that's ever been put down on vellum, and you're saying it to a brick wall, 6 feet in front of you, and you're getting nothing back, understandably, from the wall's perspective.
Yes.
And then you go on your first preview in front of 1,100 people at the Olivier Theatre, and each one is responding. Each one is a living, breathing receptor to what you're talking about. And I found it unbelievably emotionally overwhelming, that first performance. Not only the fact that you were playing this part that that everyone for the last year had been saying to you, "Oh God, I hear you playing Hamlet. Bad luck."
I did it at school and all that stuff.
Yeah. But you realise the privilege of being able to share this language with an audience. Same with Iago. Same with Macbeth. Those parts that have those soliloquies in which you are able to basically have this intimate relationship with 1,100 people who change every night, who have a different response every night, but who you are implicating in the story, the reason Othello is such a tragedy is because no one in the audience stops it, and they've known from the beginning that it's what's going to happen.
Yes.
The reason why I think Hamlet is meant to move people, because he dies at the end. Sorry if you haven't seen it. He dies.
Spoiler.
He dies at the end, and he is the only person on that stage. You, as the audience member, are the only person on that stage that he has been open with. He has closed himself off with everyone else on stage, other than you, the audience member.
Yeah. Do you feel you have to be better than the last person that did it, and the whole production has to be better than the last one that did it?
No, I mean, what's really fantastic about the elasticity of those plays is obviously the fact that were I to do it 6 months later, it would be a totally different production. You sort of pick up what's in the air. There's something about the culture around you seems to seep into those shows. Even if you're doing we have done most of those Shakespeare's have been contemporary productions, but even if you're not doing a contemporary production, something about your contemporary life will have changed within a 1 year, 2 years. So they're all reflections of today as they are reflections of the early 17th century, and I think that's why we're able to keep on doing them. I mean, it's interesting when you get offered one of those parts and it's announced that you're doing it, how some people do sort of feel sorry for you, that you're having to put yourself up against these greats, these titans. And my response was always, I've been asked to do this. This is why I want to be an actor, to be able to play parts like this. And I get a chance. I might not be the best, but this is my chance. Yeah. And the privilege is to say these words, to share them with an audience, to understand them, to unpick them, to see what about me they resonate with. And that those are all privileges that I don't have to worry about how I am in relation to others. It was when we did Hamlet, there was an NT Live, so they're live broadcast into cinemas across the world, and it was the first one I'd ever done, and they were quite new into their technology at the time. And I remember just about to go on stage, and they did a sort of VT beforehand that was sort of introduced by a presenter, and then there was a VT beforehand with a bit of the soliloquy by every goddamn famous Hamlet of the last 60 years, just as I was about to go on. And again, that thing of put your mind at ease. This is what you're doing. This is who you're being. This is who you're playing, and forget about the rest.
Yeah. Umpire's coming out. I told it would fly by. What's it like playing someone who's recognisable? I'm talking Dennis Thatcher. I'm talking Lord Lucan. I mean, when we click it on, you think, oh, well, okay. I mean, I think as a viewer, you sort of get used to something not quite being like.
I think it's funny because it is for the audience, and obviously. There's so much about being an audience member, whether it be in watching TV or in the theatre, which is not real. the fact that you're sitting on your sofa watching a small square, or the fact that there's someone eating crisps next to you. There's so much that requires an audience to transcend the circumstances in which they're engaging with the art, and yet when it's real people find it really, really difficult.
Yes. Yes.
So in some ways you have to just sort of trust that once you set out your stall as that character, hopefully the audience will come along with you. And I've been lucky enough in a few of the parts that I've played, they haven't been necessarily the most recognisable or famous people, so that I didn't feel necessarily I was having to overlap exactly with another person's idea.
I gather playing a game of cricket affected your performance in a James Bond film one time, is that right?
I net almost once every 2 years, and I play probably twice a year, but I decided to have a net, and I had not thought that the next day I was filming a scene in which I was having to walk down an endless corridor with Daniel Craig, and I don't know if you, as a fast bowler, you might have some memory of the first time you net after a break. You probably didn't have that many breaks in your career, but
stiff as a board.
Yeah, and so there is an I'd like to think imperceptible limp as I trudge down that corridor, as all I'm thinking about is my burning thighs.
I will try and find that scene. Rory, it's been really lovely to have met you.
Lovely to
meet you. You've been a great guest. Thanks for coming in,
Thank you.
And your enthusiasm and love for cricket is really infectious.